think entrepreneurs should sit on little islands by themselves, or do you think they should join a group? That's the question for today on episode 21 of Business Mastery for Startups, Scale-Ups, and Early Stage Businesses with your host, Jerry Gadori. That's me, and Eric from the peer group Thrive. You're going to like Eric. Eric's a serial entrepreneur and has put together an incredibly dynamic group of entrepreneurs in his company Thrive, which we'll talk more about a little bit later on. But for now, Eric, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on here. Eric Harrison. I am a two-time founder, two-time bootstrapper. I think that's like the right way to build your business. And live in Philadelphia here in the U.S. So finally starting to heat up a little bit here, thank God. And spend all my time waking minute of every day building Thrive, the community for bootstrappers. But I love it. Get to meet people like you. So
it's your second time around. What that tells me is you didn't learn the first time. You were so close to being free, and they sucked you back in.
Dude, when we if we end up talking about this, when we shut our first company down like 5 years ago, my co-founders were like, "Oh, this is so nice! I've got to watch all these movies and hang out with my girlfriends and things like that." And I was like, "I've watched in the past 5 days every movie I've ever wanted to watch. I'm bored as hell. Like, I can't do this anymore."
I really, I sometimes wonder if it's an addiction, because we've spoken about this before, and I work 7 days a week, and it's not a have to. And I get an idea and I feel weird not acting on it. It's a compulsion almost.
Yeah, it's I'm obsessed, I think, over working this way. I don't know, once you get the itch of you found some success doing something for yourself, it makes the idea of even working for somebody else no, thank you.
My dad teases me that I happily work 80 hours a week for myself instead of 40 for somebody else.
That's true. But you end up working 80 for somebody else. That's just what they put on paper.
Fair. It's interesting you mentioned obsessed, though. But being small business people, we both have variations on a service business theme. That obsession pays off for our clients. Like this Saturday morning at 7 a.m, I was interviewing a candidate for one of my clients. I was texting with her at 9 o'clock that night. I was texting with her at 5 o'clock this morning. Again, that's not a necessity. I don't want to paint the wrong picture of entrepreneurship, but that type of service is what you get when you work with small businesses.
Yeah, it's around the clock. This game does not stop. Yeah, my family, if I go home, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, they're like, "It's Christmas Eve. Why are you on LinkedIn?" It's like, this is my whole life.
Mom, why aren't you on LinkedIn? That's the real question.
Oh, she is. I get a notification every while. It's like my mom has shared my LinkedIn post.
That's awesome. But
yep.
This feels like an almost natural segue. We talk about how entrepreneurs are wired a little bit differently, to the importance of having folks in your life who you can have those conversations with. I don't know your friend group, but I know mine very often are like, "Jerry," much like your mom did in that example. "What do you mean you're interviewing somebody on a Saturday morning?" I had family visiting, and I was down in my office working, and they're like, "What do you mean it's Saturday morning you're interviewing people?" They just didn't get that. So I think, again, natural segue, having people in life who get it is critical for support and success.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I mean, I wrote this playbook, and one of the chapters was even friends are going to mock you. That just happens. People that have not done this just they don't get what it feels like, and they really can't relate to why you're putting yourself through that. We'll be on a trip. I wake up at, everybody wakes up at 9, 10 after a night out. It's I actually, really don't care how late we stay out. 6 a.m. I gotta be up. I gotta be working. I gotta get in the zone. Otherwise, the whole day is ruined.
Do you know what's funny about that? Have you ever heard of the Icarus syndrome or Icarus problem?
No.
You'll like this. So it's the other side of what you just described. So when we're just starting out and things are bonkers, most of our friends will at least pay lip service to wanting us to succeed, at the very least. They won't understand things for sure, and they'll make comments that they think are helpful but truly are not. But they want you to succeed, and they say that. But there's a point where you succeed past where they start to feel badly and all that support becomes negative. I'm certainly nowhere near that point yet, mind you. But to give an extreme example, think early stage Zuckerberg and Facebook. Everybody thought that was cool. Everybody thought the Harvard dropout, was such a neat little nerdy dude. And then once it hit a certain size and he started to look like Data from Star Trek, that changed real quick.
Yeah.
And that's called it's the Icarus effect. That's called when you get a little too high, people just no longer have your back, no longer want you to succeed.
Yeah, I believe that. I think Alex Hormozy has like a quote that's like everybody wants to see you do well, like nobody wants to see you do better than them. So it's like,
I've heard that.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
once you get to a certain stage, that support you had, it's like, well, wait, like where'd it go? And it's like you have achieved the thing that they wanted to achieve and you're still going.
Yes. And then they start to feel badly about themselves and they project that, I think, onto you when you get there. But a little bit aside from what we're talking about, certainly still part of the value of having other entrepreneurs as friends. But since the two of us combined, aren't quite near there yet, let's take it back to where we are. So what value do you see? I, by the way, agree that having a network, a group of entrepreneurs is incredibly valuable. What do you see from your perspective as the person putting a community like that together?
I think you don't know what you don't know. And what's cool about entrepreneurship is whether you founded like 1 or 7 companies, like to some degree, everybody's just trying to figure it out. Like there are people that run 7-figure businesses that have like, they'll tell you like, I don't know how it got here. Like it just happened, like things worked out for us. And every day you wake up and like have 50 things you don't know how to solve that you just have to find a way to solve by the end of the day. That's like pretty much like how I describe an entrepreneur's day. So I think what's valuable is not only like getting advice on what you should do. These people are great at saying what you shouldn't do because they have stepped on a landmine that has cost them time and money and they don't want to see you do the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
I was in a group like call the other day. One of the members, he's like 25. He was like, I think I'm going to run LinkedIn ads on this subject. He has somebody in our group who like has the exact same business model who is like, I tried that actually, it bombed. You should do this instead. Like it cost me a bunch of money and like this crushes, it works. He tried the thing he suggested, it worked really well. And it's like $200 is a lot, if you're like just trying to like test things and figure it out. So even just having that peer support of like, I have your best interest, don't want to see you step on the same problems I did, I found it to be really helpful.
You said 2 things I want to dial back to because I think they bear expanding on. The first is you don't know what you don't know. Maslow's hierarchy of adult learning refers to that as unconscious incompetence. That's not meant as a shot at anybody. To your point exactly, you don't know what you don't know. And when you're on an island by yourself, you wind up making all those mistakes. But in a peer group, you have the opportunity, if you engage and share your problems, to get the opportunity to learn from somebody else's pain, which is better.
Yep. Yeah. Everybody's making multiple mistakes a day. I think what's cool about a peer group, if it's built around like trust and authenticity and vulnerability, is you can say like, I'm struggling with XYZ thing. And everybody that's been in that spot before is, they're not going to make fun of you for that. They actually just want to see you succeed and see you get help. So no, I think peer groups, they're not only motivating, they do like drive direct results and attachment to like revenue and things like that.
Yeah, the motivation part is nice for sure, but I agree with you. That's not the most important. It's valuable, but that's not the most important part. Now, I don't want this to become a Thrive commercial, but having been a member of Thrive, the weekly happy hours that you hold where people can just come on and talk, that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
again, as a consultant, I charge hundreds of dollars an hour to work with people. And I know that I've seen other people on the calls that have similar pricing, and people are happy to share that info in that forum. It's such a great environment. And for somebody bootstrapping, I mean, that's enormous to be able to talk to people who've done what you're doing, but are maybe a year or 5 ahead of you, to be able to talk with industry experts and thought leaders that are there because they want a different problem they're having solved. But since you have a problem in their purview, they can give you direction. That's enormous.
And they just get it. To our point earlier, like awesome to have friends and family in your corner. Like their support goes a mile, but like the advice is like what lacks there in a lot of ways. And being around people who are not competitors to you, but they're like, dude, I get it. Been through this. Like, take a deep breath, think about this differently. Very helpful.
And I'll say, even if they are competitors, there's different flavors of competitor. I mean, iron sharpens iron, and a competitor that you can be friendly with. I mean, you're not going to divulge your secret sauce and share your client list. That'd just be dumb and put each other in a bad place. But you can help each other improve. Having good competitors in the marketplace can be an advantage. So even if there are competitors, I mean, again, in an earlier life, when I was working in consulting into the technology staffing in the technology professional services space, I would have group calls with owners of competing businesses. Now, once again, we had ground rules. We didn't say specific clients. We were mindful of what we shared. But by elevating everybody's game, you elevate the bar in your space. So even if there are competitors, I'd say still worth it.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And it's good to have relationships with these people. People price their stuff differently too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a good relationship with a competitor who's maybe a little bit lower than you, somebody's looking for a lower option, like you might send them clients just because they send you clients in return or referrals. So it is. I do agree. I saw a good post today that was like you should go out and make friends with your competitors if you guys have the same values. Like there's no sense in like trying to tear each other down. So.
Exactly right. And you can bird dog for each other because I'll tell you, I've worked with clients I would never work with again, not because it didn't work out, but because I wasn't impressed with her integrity. I'll leave it
Yeah.
there. But you can help each other with that. So I couldn't agree more. So advice is an obvious thing. We talked a little bit about motivation. What other value is there to a group like yours?
Um, Beyond the advice and beyond the motivation, I do think what's cool about a group like this is like we sort of hinted at this, it can definitely drive you new business, which is like cool if you use it the right way. Um, I think there are people that join communities with the intention of pitch slapping, and those people typically do not win new business. And there are people that join the community without the intention of winning new business, but to build relationships. Ironically, those are the people that sell a bunch of work, like to the communities, right? Like you get in, like you have 20 conversations with somebody, they bring up a pain point, and then they're like, oh shoot, like you do this, right? Like how would you handle this? Tell them how you handle it, and they're just like, well, what do you usually charge for something? And that just sort of like happens that way. So I think that I've seen people like in our peer group and our communities and some other ones, like the people that are very helpful in solving challenges that people transparently said to the group and then don't ask for anything in return, those people win business and it influences the revenue.
100%. And I want to put a pin in that because I want to circle back to one thing you said there that I think is super valuable. But you mentioned another thing I want to address first, and that's the relationships part. So one of the cool thing about communities like that is you're going to find people, just whether it's personality or business type or whatever, that have more in common with you in your journey, that you can develop a relationship with that transcends the community, that you
Yep.
wind up talking outside of events, that you wind up talking outside of the kind of the parameters of the community. And that can be life changing. Um, the other thing I want to mention that you just talked about, how to act in a community. So again, I don't know the entirety of Thrive's demographics, but I'd wager the majority are service businesses. Most startups are. They're easier to start than most product companies are. And I would also wager that within any community, there's a significant percentage that could do business with each other. Um, what 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 tips would you advise somebody when they're looking for a community to join, and when they find that, how to conduct themselves inside of one?
Great questions. So two things. Communities by nature of what they are a people business. Like your whole, if you're selling like a community for paid, or I guess even if it's free, like your whole job is to like be a connector, make introductions. So I would join the communities where like you have a personal attachment to why it was started and the person running it. Like I personally do not get a lot of value out of these like free Slack communities with like 10,000 people in them where it's like a bunch of people pitch slapping. Like the founders like not interested in having conversations with people. Like those ones are not for me. I do really like the groups where it's like, wow, this person's busy, like took the time, like they onboarded me, like buck stops with them, like they ask for feedback, like they invite me to things, they make connections. I love groups like that, where you get to like build a real relationship, and it's a people business. So I think that's a big thing. And I think how you conduct yourself, I don't remember maybe I was talking about this with Grace McCarrick actually, like a week ago. The internet, places like Reddit, like kill me for this, but like the internet gives people like a freedom to act in a way that they would never act face to face or online. Like we were talking about this, and it's like if you ever walked up to somebody at a networking event and like never asked them their name and just started pitching that, like they would walk away. You would never do that. You just wouldn't behave that way, and people think they can do that on LinkedIn because you're never going to meet these people again, when in reality that customer could have like changed the way your whole business operates and you just lost them. So I think like operate like you would in like a real networking event or like in real life. Like get to know these people, get to know like why they started their company, like figure out what problem they have. And like if it's a problem you can solve and they like trust you, like they will ask you to solve it before they go search for XYZ company on the internet.
100%. You said something right at the beginning. I think that's super relevant. Not even asking, as counterintuitive as it is, can be incredibly valuable, because if you are personable when you're interacting with the group, so people actually want to talk to you, and you're adding value that's relevant to them, they're naturally going to engage. And there will come a point when they will realize that, hey, this person has something to offer that I don't have. We should talk about that. So I love that strategy first. But if you do want to take the initiative and reach out to somebody saying something, hey, what you're talking about, I can help with. For me, I think the best thing to do is, number one, at the very least, interact the person for a while. Number two, understand the problem so you can come to them with a meaningful solution. And number three, and I've seen this in groups and it's gross, don't blanket spam everybody in the group with the digital version of your business card. If
Yep.
you said something in a group as an individual and I thought it could help, and I, for whatever reason, wasn't willing to wait or wasn't able to wait, and I reach out to you directly and say, hey, Eric, in this section you said X, I think I can help with Y. I think that there's a good chance that would be well received, even if we hadn't communicated. But if you were one of 100 people that received the digital version of my business card, that's a fast track to a spam folder.
Yeah, and it cheapens the whole thing. No one likes being sold to, even if you need the solution. Yep. No one likes being sold to. Nobody loves spending money. So
yeah, there's an old axiom: no one likes to be sold, but everyone likes to buy. And the best salespeople, you don't feel sold. You feel like you were guided towards a place you wanted to go. So I couldn't agree more. Now, you said there's one other thing you said at the beginning about Thrive, and I know this obviously, but for people who are tuning in that don't know your group, Thrive is specifically geared towards bootstrapping entrepreneurs. Less about your business stage, more about the fact that you're self-funded. And that brings up another important point, I think, when you're selecting a group. The tighter to your use case, generally speaking, the better off it's going to be for you. So if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, which is, I think, 86% of all startup businesses. I remember reading a statistic recently that only 14% of businesses are VC fundable anyway. So if that's true, you have to assume somewhere between 85 and 90% of businesses are bootstrapped. And yet, when you read about startups, what do you read about? How to get your seed pre-seed, how to put together your deck for your seed rounds, So I think that's huge. Have you found it's different in interacting with bootstrap folks versus funded folks, or what made you decide to make that choice?
Yeah. Yes, I've definitely noticed a difference in the interaction. And the company I used to work for, we were, that I was the head of sales for, we were selling like 40K implementation services to like Series A, Series B, pre-seed, seed funded, like mostly technology companies. And like, no knock to these businesses, like they are cool ideas, but like they just burn money on things that make like absolutely no sense. Like I just, some of the things it's like, oh, we're gonna spend $200,000 on XYZ. It's like you guys are not profitable yet. Like you, what are we talking about? So I think the bootstrap entrepreneur, like when you talk to them, one, they're very conscious of knowing like where every dollar's got to like see a return in some way. Like we've got to be very cautious about how we spend. We've got to be very intentional about the way they spend. I think, again, this isn't to like knock funding companies. I think bootstrappers like care about their customers more. Like losing a customer when you're bootstrapped feels like losing 1,000 when you're not. I can't run $1,000 of LinkedIn ads and just go get 3 of those back tomorrow. Like, has a big impact. Their word of mouth about how they talk about my company if they leave has like a big impact. So I just think bootstrapping beyond the financial piece is so much of like a mentality of people I enjoy being around. Again, like why I chose them when I like was really struggling 5 years ago to like figure out my first business as a 20-something-year-old. Like I just could not find people that seemed to like get what it was like. Only solution somebody had for me, for everybody we talked to, was like cash for equity. And I was like, that is not my problem. Like I need support and guidance and need to know how to not step on so many landmines. So I think I both appreciate what it means to bootstrap, but I have an affinity for helping people that like remind me of me.
Yeah, I think there's value. I mean, there's use cases. There's VC exists for a reason, but the thing to remember when you're choosing to do business with a company is anything that's VC funded is designed to be exited. The only way that a VC gets their money back, and they're not criminals, they're not volunteers either, is through an exit event. And there's only 2 ways that happens: either you go public, or you get acquired.
Yep.
So if somebody says I'm funded, they're saying I'm exiting. And it's just a matter of timeline, how big they get before that happens. When you're dealing with a bootstrap business, that's somebody, again, they may be planning on exiting at some point too, but there's more likelihood that they plan on being around. And I think that's a big difference.
Yeah. And it's, they're around, they care about the reputation they're building. Like it's everything. It's like their name on attach it. If they have an office, they were there on day one to turn the key and they'll be the last one to shut it. So no, I completely agree. And you don't have the like growth at all costs mindset, like going up 10% a year is like monumental to a VC. A lot of times that's like, well, you did nothing this year. Like, you didn't achieve anything. It's like, gosh.
Yeah, the chief KPI on a VC funded company is speed of growth, rate of growth, because that allows them to get a better valuation for a bigger next round, which if they can do enough of that quickly enough, gets them to the exit that the VCs want so badly. But a bootstrap business is all about running a sustainable, profitable business. So just the mentality, I think, is different. Again, I don't want to attack funded companies. Again, they have their place. Apicero, which is a company I was a big part of, was self-funded up until we got to be a few hundred people, and we needed funding to get to the next step. We were growing rapidly. We had the sales funnel to support it. We just didn't have the money to bring people on. Now, again, that did wind up being an exit, but most of the principles are still attached because it was an acquisition. So still cool. But when it comes to bootstrap companies, again, to your point, it's about running profitable business. So again, being bootstrapped, it's hard not to be biased towards that. But let's shift back to the community itself. So we've identified communities you want to be a part of as communities that aren't too big, like to your point with the Slack communities of 10,000 people or more, so that there's good engagement in the members, engagement with the founder, something that's at least mostly targeted towards your use case, so you can find people that have similar places. Ideally, they're your type of company, but a year or two ahead of you, so you can get some stuff. Are there any other things that you look for, in a community, or that you should look for when considering joining one?
That it feels, I think like one of the biggest things is like it feels like an extension, and it feels like an extension of your daily routine, and it feels like it adds you value. Like if you see like the community event on your calendar, and every time you're like, oh God, or you're like, maybe I should like log in. Like you should want to do that because it's like adding perspective. It's like bringing you business. It's like where your friends are at, like, so I think if like, and a common objection like I get when I like talk to people about like Thrive, or like even the ideas, like, dude, I'm in like all these communities that I don't even use. And then I just want to be like, well, then leave them. Like, why are you in these things that like you haven't logged into for 6 months? Or like, I'm sorry they gave you a bad rap about this, but it should feel like an extension. It should feel like, you're getting something out of it, and not like you're just giving to give.
Yeah, I think there's a balance, because I see what you're saying with the Slack communities. If there's a million people there, and your question, concern, problem, whatever, never gets addressed, that's a loser. But I think the opposite's also true. If there's no engagement, there's no network effect. It's
Yeah.
it's the opposite problem, or opposite reason, but same problem. You're not likely to get anything. What I like about Thrive is there's an ability to get answers. There's the weekly happy hour. There's also the 2 times per week webinar, which I think that's some serious value add. You've got different relevant business topics to early stage companies and to bootstrap companies, and an opportunity to hear different voices, often from the community itself, sharing their ideas. I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts. Like when we first started this, of course, we had like 10 members. Like I had to go outsource like finding webinar speakers. I think it's cool now, like almost every webinar speaker, that like they are a community member. Like I think it's cool to, you give their title, give what they do, and then it's like, and Jerry is also a member of Thrive. Like I think it's just cool to see people like go through meeting people and becoming a part of this, and then to be the person that is like facilitating and teaching. I just think it's like a cool full circle thing for people.
Yeah, I should disclose that I am a member of Thrive, if that it isn't clear. And I don't normally do these episodes as endorsements, but if you are in the bootstrap community, you could do far worse than to join Thrive. It's extremely affordable, very dynamic, a lot of interaction amongst members. As I'd mentioned, there's 3 live events per week, so there's a strong probability that you can catch at least one. The educational sections, the webinars are recorded, so if you do miss it, you can catch it later. Just a huge opportunity there. Commercial over, back to groups. So when you're looking at networking groups, I think another important thing, might seem obvious since it's predominantly an online thing, is it's national, so you get different perspectives than just having a local thing. I think it would be awesome, especially as Thrive grows, if we could have, I don't know if it's regional hubs, I don't know if it's like industry groups, or even just occasional local meetups. I think that would be really cool.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, I'm like an in-person geek. Love in-person
Yeah.
stuff. We're doing in like 3 weeks. I'm doing like an event in Philly, like dinner drinks, like at an office that one of our members has actually, which is cool. If you ask me like 5 years from now, I would love to do like one of those 4 times a year in Philly and 4 times a year in Boston and New York and San Fran. Yeah, like all over. I would love to, take the bootstrappers that are there, like let them find in-person community, prove like this city is like ran on bootstrapped entrepreneurs, like here they are in full mass. And yeah, I think the in-person stuff just creates real community, real friendships. And it's cool to see people like in our community, and I've seen this in other communities too, like realize they're in the same city as each other, and like you go to a happy hour, you get a coffee, whatever it is, and that friendship just becomes tighter.
It's huge, and there's a whole nother layer of development there. So I used to pre-COVID do a lot of traveling for business, and the good thing for me about a very bad situation in COVID was it normalized this type of communication, so I didn't need to do as much. But the downside of that was not having that in-person dynamic not only diminished relationships or slowed their growth, but in some instances, it certainly cost me business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that happens for sure.
So, what else would you like to share about Thrive? So, we've kind of teetered between talking about communities in general and Thrive in specific, in my opinion, just because it's a great example of what a community should aspire to be. But what would you like to talk about with Thrive?
The other big thing that we're starting to do as we kind of like got over the 100 member mark, like the beginning, it was nice. Like it was nice, honestly, that like a few people came to calls, very intimate, like very, you get to know every member personally. As this got bigger, a fear of mine was like, okay, if we have like 50 plus people on a webinar, like not everybody's going to get to talk. Like maybe somebody doesn't get their question answered. Like very, as you mentioned, we're not industry, we're industry agnostic. So like very widespread members. So we're going to roll these out called chapters that are going to be peer groups of like 7 to 12 ish, led by like a chapter head who's like is also in that like kind of stage, but like a little bit more revenue, maybe like they've like achieved the thing a lot of people in that group want to achieve, and not competitors per se, but like they would acquire customers the same way, like their business models are the same. So when I say like, should I run a LinkedIn ad? Like the person telling me yes or no is a B2B founder who would get their customers off of LinkedIn. And it's not like that. So, if you're like a B2C group, if you're a B2C technology, or be with other B2C technology owners that are pre-revenue or like wherever your stage is. So I'm excited about those. I think it's going to give a chance for people to form like really close business and personal relationships. But I also hope that if you come to that every 2 weeks with like, this is the thing that's killing me, like I would love to find a problem or a solution to this problem, you're going to get 7 to 8 people that are like experiencing that problem every day that might have perspective. You're also going to get somebody that's like been through it that can kind of guide and give some perspective.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that's important, both from an entrepreneurial perspective and Thrive being an example of this. In the beginning, you do the things that won't scale.
Yep.
So in the beginning, right now, where the sessions are all hands, everybody attend, and it's not a problem that because everybody does get a chance to speak, everybody does get their question answered. But you've got a roadmap in place so that when that's no longer available, you have other things that can happen. So I think that's a great idea. And it's an example of how organizations grow. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and you clearly didn't do this, which is good, make the mistake that they get too far ahead of themselves. They say to themselves, well, once we're 1,000 people, we won't be able to do this. So let's go to that place now. No, you do the things now when you learn and you get the feedback and you see what your community likes and what they thrive in. And then, pun intended, and then when it gets too big to do that, you go to the next thing and then to the next thing. And I think not only will people appreciate it, but being entrepreneurs themselves, I think they'll learn lessons from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I got a suggestion the other day, like, will I at some point probably have to do like offer 2-ish sessions a week where we say, everybody that's joined in the past 7 days, like this is your onboarding call, like come to this. It's going to be like 50 people on it. Like probably, but like, I'm not willing to do that right now. Like, I don't have, like, I'm not getting like 50 a day. So, and like, I really enjoy getting to know people like one-on-one. It's like a huge part of this right now. So like, you're correct. I think it would be easy for me to be like, oh, this would save me 15 hours a week, but like, will it lose me 13 customers because I didn't like develop a good relationship with them? Quite maybe. So, who knows? I agree with you. Like, don't put the cart ahead of the horse. Like, I think with a product, in a business like we're building really, really, really loyal people that like will give us feedback, that will evangelize this, will like not tell me things I just want to hear, but like they have an investment in this becoming better because it makes their business better too. I'm all about that. So
yeah, community is all about engagement. So I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that sounds like you're doing right too is that feedback piece. So that's another challenge for entrepreneurs as we get stuck in our head. We work our way all the way from A to Z in the solution. Then we go to our customer for feedback. We should have hit them somewhere in between A and Z, somewhere around D or E for feedback, and then use that to recalibrate. Hit them again at M, use that to recalibrate. Now at Z, we're ready. I think that's a big win. So that's awesome. So listen, I think what you're doing is great. I completely agree. The value for folks to join peer communities is huge. I think Thrive, if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, is obvious. Eric, how do people get in touch with you? How do they find you to be able to learn more about Thrive and about the exciting stuff you're doing?
Yeah, well, I went to a Philly event 2 weeks ago and somebody was like, you're the bootstrapped guy from LinkedIn. So maybe if you search that up. But he's like, you're the guy with the sunglasses photos. Yep. I'm really active on LinkedIn, like Eric Harrison. If you search Thrive, I should come up. Thrive is also active, like the account on LinkedIn, try to highlight like our members win. So I will respond to any DM I get there. So you can find me there. Our website, thriveforbootstrappers.com. if you fill out an inquiry on that or like want more information, like we'll respond really quickly on there as well. And then just in general, like I would say our most active platform is on LinkedIn. Like a bunch of our members are on there that are talking about this and what they get out of it. So I think they even have better words than I on why someone would get value out of being in a peer community. So LinkedIn or our website, or if you can't find those places, but you find my cell phone number, I'll probably take the call too.
Well, I will include your LinkedIn profile, the Thrive profile, and the website in the show notes,
Cool.
and leave the sleuths to finding your cell phone.
I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere.
For anyone listening, that is not a challenge. You don't need to do that. Well, awesome. This feels like a natural break. We got to talk about Thrive. We got to talk about how to find you. I really thank you for being on the show, Eric. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for inviting me, and thanks for being a voice for entrepreneurs, Jerry.
No, thank you very much for being on. I appreciate it. Thrive is the best. So for all you awesome folks out there, until next week, go out, build something awesome, be awesome, and see what you can accomplish. Talk to you then.